My brother's girlfriend framed me, my family cut me off, but came begging for forgiveness after he landed in prison. I'm 28 now, but everything went sideways when I was 21 and back home for winter break. My younger brother Max was 19 then, and he had this girlfriend, CIA, she was 17 at the time. They'd been dating for about 8 months, and honestly, she was always around. My parents thought she was amazing. They saw her as this sweet, wholesome girl who had a good influence on Max, who'd always been a little impulsive. They figured she helped settle him down or whatever. Me? I didn't really pay her much mind. I had a lot going on in classes, deadlines, and an internship lined up for the summer. My focus was getting through junior year without burning out. But anytime I came home, CIA would find a way to start conversations with me. She'd ask about college, my classes, what it was like. I figured she was just being polite or maybe thinking ahead since she was a high school senior. But then stuff started to get weird, like, really weird. She began showing up when Max wasn't even home and my parents were at work. I'd tell her he wasn't around, but she'd just hang out like she was waiting for him anyway. And when we watched TV together, she'd sit way too closer than was comfortable, and start saying things like how I seemed way more mature than Max, and how college guys were probably more interesting than boys her age. At that point, I knew exactly where it was heading, and I wanted nothing to do with it. First off, she was with my brother. Second, she was underage. And third, I just wasn't into her. She wasn't unattractive, sure, but that wasn't the point. The whole thing felt off and wrong in every possible way. Then one night during that break, everything blew up. Max was out with some buddies, and my parents were at a Christmas party. I was chilling in the living room, just playing some video games, when CIA showed up at the door. Said she was looking for Max. I told her straight up he wasn't home and wouldn't be for a while, and that she should probably just text him. Instead of heading out, she walked in and sat beside me. And again, she started with that same talk, how I seemed more thoughtful, more mature, and how she wished she was dating someone older. I could feel the tension building and I wanted to shut it down, so I got up and told her I was gonna grab some food. I even asked if she wanted anything, partly to change the subject, partly to put some space between us. But she followed me into the kitchen. While I was reaching into the fridge, she came up behind me and placed her hands on my back. Then she said something along the lines of how she'd always found me attractive and sometimes wondered what it'd be like to be with someone like me instead of Max. That's when I turned around, stepped back, and told her to knock it off. I reminded her she was dating my brother and that none of this was okay. But instead of backing down, she took a step closer and tried to put her arms around my neck. She said Max didn't have to know anything, and that she thought about me all the time. I knew she was about to try to kiss me. So I grabbed her wrists, gently moved her hands away from me, and told her no. Point blank. I told her this wasn't going to happen and that she needed to leave, now. Her whole expression shifted, like I'd slapped her or something. She looked embarrassed, angry, and almost betrayed. She called me mean, insisted I did want her to, and asked why I was acting like such a jerk. I repeated myself, I told her to leave and said we weren't ever going to speak about this again. She stormed out crying. Yeah, I felt bad watching her cry. But deep down, I knew I handled it the only way I could. What else was I supposed to do, let my brother's teenage girlfriend hit on me and throw my whole life away? Not a chance. I figured she'd be embarrassed, maybe a little angry, but she'd get over it and life would go back to normal. Or at least quiet. But 2 days later, everything exploded. Max came home absolutely livid. He stormed in, yelling that I was a sick freak and how could I betray him like that. I didn't even know what he was talking about at first until he said CIA had told him everything. According to her, I tried to force myself on her. That I made a move and she had to fight me off. That she was traumatized and didn't feel safe around guys anymore. I was stunned. I just stood there, trying to process what I was hearing. I told him she was twisting the truth, that she was the one who came on to me and I turned her down. But Max wouldn't even let me finish. He shouted that I was lying to save face, that I was just trying to flip the blame onto her because I'd been caught. Then my parents walked in. They heard us yelling and immediately demanded to know what was going on. Max told them his version, CIA's version. My mom started crying. My dad just stared at me like he didn't recognize who I was. I tried to explain the truth, but my dad shut me down. He said CIA was just a kid and I was supposed to be the adult. That I'd broken their trust in the worst way possible. My mom said CIA had no reason to make something like this up and was clearly shaken. I told them maybe she felt embarrassed because I rejected her, and now she was retaliating. But they just looked at me with disgust. My mom said I was being disgusting for trying to blame the victim. That week was brutal. Max wouldn't speak to me. My parents avoided me. My mom wouldn't even sit at the dinner table with me. My dad made cold, passive-aggressive comments every chance he got about how disappointed he was and how he didn't know who I really was. I tried pulling each of them aside to explain what had actually happened. None of them wanted to hear it. My mom said she couldn't handle the details. My dad told me I needed to grow up, own what I did, and stop coming up with excuses. Max told me flat out to stay away from CIA and that he'd never forgive me. The worst part? CIA still came around. And now she was playing it up, acting all nervous when I walked into a room, avoiding eye contact, making sure someone else was always nearby. Like she was scared of me. It was all fake, I could see right through it, but everyone else was eating it up and it just made me look even worse. Eventually, I packed my stuff and went back to school early. I couldn't take it anymore. I figured time might cool things off and maybe they'd start to realize her story didn't make any sense. But when I came back for spring break, it was somehow even worse. Turns out, they'd been talking with CIA's parents and there were serious conversations about getting law enforcement involved. That's when my dad sat me down and said if I just admitted to what I did and apologized from the heart, maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to move forward as a family. When my dad told me that continuing to paint CIA as some manipulative liar was going to ruin any hope of fixing things, I just stood there stunned. I told him I didn't owe anyone an apology because I hadn't done anything wrong. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "That's your call. But you better understand choices come with consequences." That's when it hit me. No matter what I said, no matter how clearly I laid out the truth, they were never going to believe me. It didn't matter if I had receipts, witnesses, or begged on my knees. They'd already made their judgment. I finished my junior year, crushed my internship over the summer, and when it ended, I didn't go home. I found a job across state lines, got my own place, and just moved on. I started fresh, away from people who saw me as something disgusting instead of their own son. At first, they tried calling. They wanted me to come back home. But I shut that down fast. I told them, why would I come back to a house where I'm treated like a criminal? Like I'm not even human? My mom would cry on the phone, saying she just wanted me to get help and take accountability, that if I'd just admit it, we could start healing. But there was nothing for me to confess. I didn't do anything. And eventually, they stopped calling. That was 7 years ago. Since then, I built a stable, happy life. I've got a solid career, and I'm engaged to an incredible woman who knows everything that happened, every detail, and believes me without question. For a long time, I truly believed that chapter of my life was closed for good. But then last month, I got a phone call that dragged it all back. It was my mom. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her at first. She said they'd made a huge mistake, and she begged me to come home. Max had been arrested, caught dealing serious drugs. Not weed. We're talking cocaine. Heroin. He's facing 15 to 20 years in federal prison. After his arrest, CIA dumped him almost immediately and started seeing someone else. Cold. Apparently, CIA's been running her mouth to people about how she fooled my whole family. Bragging, even. Telling people how she made up the story about me because I rejected her. Said she just wanted to hurt me for turning her down and never imagined it would spiral the way it did, but once it did, she couldn't backtrack without outing herself as a liar. So now, all of a sudden, my parents know the truth. Now they're sorry. Now they want to make things right. They want me to come home and stand with the family at Max's sentencing to show support. My mom begged, saying I'm still their son and that families forgive and that they need me now more than ever. I listened quietly while she cried. And then I told her the truth, that it was far too late. They made their decision years ago when they chose to believe a high school girl over their own son. When they threw me away like I meant nothing. I told her I'd built a life without them. And that life doesn't include people who once looked at me like I was some kind of monster. She kept crying, telling me they were going through hell and asking how I could turn my back on them now. And I told her point blank, you turned your backs on me when I needed you most. Don't come calling now just because your favorite son got caught. Then I ended the call. Since then, I've been getting bombarded with texts and phone calls from extended relatives, cousins, aunts, even people I haven't heard from in years. They all say I'm being cruel, that my parents are devastated, and that I should give them another shot. Even my fiancé, who's been 100% on my side, has started wondering if maybe I should at least speak to them. Not to forgive. Not to forget. Just to hear them out. For closure. But I can't help thinking, why now? They didn't hesitate back then. They didn't question anything. They didn't even ask for my side. They were so quick to condemn me, to treat me like a predator. Like I didn't even deserve a voice. And now, because Max is in trouble and they're drowning in legal fees, they suddenly want their other son back? Now I matter? I don't feel sorry for them. Not in the slightest. Max turned out to be a drug dealer. That doesn't magically erase what they did to me. It doesn't mean I have to step in and pretend we're some big happy family again. So I guess the question is, does that make me heartless? Am I wrong for refusing to forgive people who never gave me the benefit of the doubt? Or am I right to leave them in the past where they left me? Update 1. Reading all your replies has been eye-opening. A little overwhelming, honestly. But hearing total strangers validate how I feel, it's been a lifeline. Everyone around me keeps acting like I should just let this go, like 7 years is long enough to stay mad. But hearing from people who get it? It helps. A lot of folks asked for more details about how the truth came out, so here's what I learned. CIA was at a party with her new boyfriend. She got drunk and started bragging to people about what she did. She admitted she'd had a thing for me and that when I rejected her, she made up the whole story out of spite. Said she wanted to ruin me because I embarrassed her. She laughed about how easily she convinced my entire family. Someone at the party knew my folks and told them what she said. When my parents confronted her, she tried to deny it at first. But eventually, she broke down and admitted it was all a lie. She said she was young, stupid, and didn't think it would go that far. Claimed she was sorry, but the damage had already been done. The day after they found out, my mom called me. She was a wreck, sobbing, apologizing, saying she couldn't believe how wrong they'd been and how much time they lost with me. But honestly, hearing her cry didn't comfort me at all. It just made me angrier. They didn't even hesitate back then. Didn't stop to question whether their son, the kid they raised for 21 years, might be telling the truth. They trusted a teenager they barely knew over me. Threw me out like garbage. Since I made the first post, even more family has reached out. My aunt called yesterday to tell me my mom's barely functioning. Says she's filled with guilt, doesn't know how to live with herself now that she knows what she did to me. Apparently, my parents are in therapy, trying to fix things. Trying to heal. And they just want a chance to make it up to me. But I told her what I keep telling everyone else, some damage is permanent. They had 7 years to see the truth. 7 years to ask questions. 7 years to call and say, maybe we were wrong. But they didn't. They only called once Max got himself into serious trouble and needed saving. That's not love, that's desperation. And yeah, I also found out more about Max's case. It's worse than I thought. He's been selling for at least 3 years, and the feds have him locked down airtight. His lawyer's trying to work out a deal, but the minimum sentence is still 10 years. My parents are financially drained. They've spent everything they have trying to fight the charges. And now, suddenly, they want to reconnect. I'd be lying if I said I didn't wonder if they'd have reached out at all if things were different. If Max wasn't in prison, if they weren't broke, would they have ever picked up the phone? My fiancée and I have been talking about it a lot. She's not pressuring me, but she says maybe I should meet with them, just once. Not to make peace, but to get it all out and maybe walk away feeling more free. But honestly, I'm not sure I want that. I've done fine without them. 7 years. No contact. No drama. I've healed. I'm happy. I don't miss them. And I don't think I ever will. So why would I ever let them back into my life just so they can tear it apart all over again? Because that's exactly what would happen, I'm sure of it. They'd swear they've changed, promise to be different, but the truth is, the damage is already done. And no amount of apologies is going to undo what they put me through. Some people in the comments say I should be the bigger person. That I should forgive them, because holding on to resentment is unhealthy. But I honestly don't feel like I'm holding on to anything. I've let it go. I moved on. They're the ones dragging me back into their mess. I'm not sitting around every day, angry about what they did. I'm living my life, working, loving, planning a future. I've been happy. And if that means keeping certain people blood or not out of my life for good, then so be it. What really eats at me is how they expect me to just forget everything. To act like 7 years of being treated like I didn't matter never happened. Like I should be grateful that they finally decided I was telling the truth. Well, I'm not grateful. I'm not running back. And I don't care if that makes me the villain in their story. They cut me out a long time ago and they don't get to write me back in now, just because it's convenient. Update 2. 2 days ago, I got a phone call I never thought I'd get. It was Max's lawyer. He told me that Max has been asking about me from jail. Said he wants to speak to me before his sentencing. Apparently, Max has had a lot of time to think behind bars and he wants to apologize for not believing me about what really happened with CIA. The lawyer asked if I'd consider writing a character letter on Max's behalf. I told him the truth. Max and I haven't said a single word to each other in 7 years. I have no idea who he is anymore. I can't speak to his character now, because I genuinely don't know what's left of it. The lawyer admitted it was a long shot, but said Max is desperate. That he's finally recognizing how badly he screwed things up, not just with the law, but with his family too. He also gave me some background on Max's case. Apparently, the drug dealing didn't start until about a year after I left. It started small and escalated quickly. And, according to Max, one of the things that pushed him down that path was losing his brother. Me. I don't know how I feel about that. On one hand, Max made his choices. He's an adult. No one forced him into the drug game. He had options. On the other hand, I can't help wondering, would things have turned out differently if I'd stayed? If I'd fought harder to make our parents see the truth? If I hadn't walked away? My fiancée thinks I should at least hear Max out. She's not saying I need to help him, just listen. She thinks it might help me understand why my family turned on me so fast. But honestly, I'm not sure I want to understand. I've been stuck in my own head for days now, replaying all of this. I can't figure out what's right anymore. I've also found out that my parents have been telling people in our hometown the truth finally. They're admitting they were wrong, that they falsely accused me. Apparently, some folks in town aren't being very forgiving. They're asking why my parents believed a teenage girl over their own son. And while part of me thinks they're finally getting a taste of the shame I had to live with, another part of me just feels numb. Then there's Max sitting in jail, asking to talk to the brother he once turned his back on. It's hard to ignore. I keep remembering us as kids, how close we used to be. He followed me around everywhere. Wanted to be like me. I taught him how to ride a bike, how to throw a football. He used to look at me like I hung the moon. But that same kid grew up to scream in my face and call me a pervert. He wouldn't even look at me before I left home. And for the next 7 years? Not a single message. Not a call. Nothing. He never once questioned the story or wondered if maybe I was telling the truth. So now what? What am I supposed to do with all this? Everyone's got opinions, but no one has answers. I'm mentally exhausted. I thought I'd made peace with everything years ago. But now? It's like they ripped the scab off a wound I didn't even know was still there, and now it's bleeding into everything. The truth is, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask for Max to get arrested. I didn't ask for CIA to come clean. I didn't ask for my parents to show up begging for forgiveness. I was fine. I had peace. I had distance. I had freedom. And now I feel like I've been dragged back into a story I never wanted to read again. Like even in their apologies, they've made it about themselves. What they need. What they feel. Maybe I'll talk to Max. Maybe I won't. I honestly don't know yet. But if I do, it's going to be on my terms, not because a lawyer asked me to help his case, and not because my parents are hoping it'll make them feel better. Update 3. I ended up visiting Max. And I still don't know how to describe the conversation we had. I left that jail more confused than when I went in. The visit itself was grim, just as soul-crushing as you'd expect. Max looked rough, way thinner than I remembered. Pale. Worn out. Honestly, he looked older than 26. The second he saw me, he started crying before he even said a word. That caught me off guard. He said he was sorry. Said he'd been wrong about everything. That he's thought about me every single day since I left. Finding out CIA lied, he said it shattered him. Said he realized too late that he'd sacrificed his own brother over a lie. Then he told me something I didn't expect. Apparently, even back then right after our fight, he started having doubts. Said there were things in CIA's story that didn't line up. That she'd change details depending on who she was talking to. Said he brought it up with a couple of his friends, and even they thought her story didn't make sense. That it was strange how she still kept coming around our house like nothing had happened, even though she was supposedly traumatized. I asked him, if you had doubts, why didn't you say anything? He looked down and said he was embarrassed. That he didn't want to admit he'd been played. And by that point, our parents were already locked into believing her version. He didn't think they'd believe him if he changed his tune. He also said that after I left, he tried bringing it up with them a few times, tried to say maybe the story didn't add up. But they'd shut him down. Told him he was just feeling guilty for not protecting his girlfriend. When Max finally started to question CIA's story, our parents didn't want to hear it. They dismissed his doubts before he could even finish. But the part that really got to me, what completely messed with my head, was what Max told me next. He said that around 2 years after I left, he and CIA got into a bad fight over something totally unrelated. And during that fight, she cracked. She told him everything. She admitted she'd lied about me. She said she was the one who came on to me. I turned her down. She got angry and embarrassed, and she made the whole thing up to get back at me. When Max told me that, I honestly couldn't breathe. I asked him straight out why he didn't go to our parents the minute she confessed. And he said he tried. But CIA begged him not to. She promised she'd tell them herself, just not yet. She told him that if the truth came out, both our families would be destroyed. Everyone would hate her. It would ruin her life. She swore she'd handle it in her own time. He believed her. He still planned to come clean, but then she told him if he said anything, she'd kill herself. She said she couldn't live with the shame, with everyone knowing what she'd done. She said it would be better to die than face it. And Max. He didn't want to be the reason someone hurt themselves. So he stayed quiet. Out of fear. Out of guilt. But he couldn't live with it. He said that's when he started using drugs, trying to escape the weight of knowing his brother was innocent and doing nothing. That's also when he started dealing. It snowballed from there. I sat across from him, listening, and I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to punch something. The other part wanted to cry. He'd known. For years. He knew the truth and said nothing. But at the same time, he was barely 20, being manipulated by someone threatening to take her life. Then he told me that when CIA dumped him and immediately moved on with another guy, he finally saw the truth. She'd been stringing him along. Lying. Controlling him. She was never going to come clean. The suicide threat? Just another way to keep him quiet. That's when he really spiraled. He said he felt like he'd lost everything, his brother, his relationship, his future. He stopped caring. Started dealing heavier stuff. Said if his life was already broken, what did it matter? Now he's facing 2 decades behind bars. And he knows it's on him. But he also believes things might have turned out differently if he'd had the courage to speak up. By the time he finished talking, we were both crying. And I didn't know what to say. For 7 years, I thought Max had blindly believed CIA. That he never questioned a thing. That he chose her over me without hesitation. But now I knew he'd been living with the truth and the guilt all this time. I told him I understood why he didn't speak up. I get it. When someone says they'll end their life, you freeze. But it didn't change the fact that I spent nearly a decade thinking my own brother saw me as a monster. Knowing he had doubts didn't erase the silence. Max nodded. He said he wasn't looking for forgiveness, he knew he didn't deserve it. He just needed me to know that deep down, he never believed I was capable of what CIA accused me of. And that losing me had been the hardest thing he'd ever gone through. I left that visit emotionally wrecked. I didn't know what to think. I still don't. I understand why he stayed silent. But I can't pretend it didn't wreck my life for years. My fiancé says this changes things. That now I have the full picture, maybe I should consider reconnecting with my parents. But I'm not sure it changes anything at all. The outcome's the same. I'm still the one who got left behind. I still don't know if I'll write that character letter for Max. I've gone back and forth a dozen times. And honestly, part of me wishes I'd never gone to see him. At least before, I could tell myself they never cared. That they never questioned. Now, it's messier. Harder. Final update. In the end, I did write the character letter. And I showed up at Max's sentencing. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I'm glad I did it. Max got 12 years instead of 20. His lawyer said the judge took the letters and family presence into account. So, it mattered. Even if I'm still sitting here unsure how I'm supposed to feel. My parents were there, too. Seeing them again after 7 years, it was surreal. They looked older. Worn out. My mom's hair was gray now. My dad, he cried the second he saw me. I'd never seen that before. After the hearing, they came over. My mom reached for a hug. I stepped back. Told her I wasn't there yet. My dad said they understood. That they were just thankful I came at all. He said they knew they had a long way to go to make things right. We sat in the courthouse cafeteria and talked. Just for an hour. It was weird. Uncomfortable. But it needed to happen. They apologized again and again. Said they knew sorry didn't fix anything, but they meant it. My mom said she'd thought about me every single day. My dad admitted they should have known better. That they'd let fear and shame make their decisions, and that they failed me in the worst way possible. I told them their apologies didn't fix the past. I'd spent years rebuilding a life without them. And it was a good life. A happy one. I didn't know if there was a way back. They said they understood. They didn't expect forgiveness right away, or maybe ever. They just hoped that someday, even if it looked different, we could have some kind of relationship again. I've been thinking about that conversation ever since. And I still don't have an answer. I don't think I can go back to being their son like nothing ever happened. But maybe I don't want to be completely cut off either. My fiancé and I have talked about taking baby steps, an occasional phone call or email. No expectations. Just leaving the door open a crack. Before Max was transferred to federal prison, I visited him again. This time, it felt lighter. Less about pain, more about truth. He's accepted where he ended up. He's not blaming anyone else. He owns it. And he asked if I'd stay in touch while he serves his sentence. I told him I'd think about it. No promises. But I was glad we'd cleared the air. I needed that. As for CIA? She moved out of town. No one really knows where she went. And honestly, that's probably for the best. I'm still figuring out what my relationship with my family is going to look like from here. I know we can't go back. But maybe there's a way forward that doesn't mean total silence, either. Right now, I'm focusing on my future, on marrying the woman I love, on continuing to build the life I want. My parents aren't entitled to be a part of that just because we share blood. If they want to be in it, they'll have to earn that place. Because forgiveness isn't automatic, it's earned. And while I still believe I did the right thing cutting them off when I did, I'm finally open to the idea that people can change. And maybe, just maybe, some bridges don't have to stay burned forever.